Welcome back to the news today. This is One on One. Martin Schulz, the president of the European Parliament these days, he is in the midst of an election campaign to become European Commission president, one of the most significant positions in the EU. Last month, during his speech in the Israeli parliament, Schulz sparked an anger of some Israeli members of the parliament when he claimed that a Palestinian citizen receives less water than an Israeli. Schulz sat down in Brussels with the I24 News chief editor of Internet and Multimedia, Adar Primor. Here's the interview.
Thank you, Mr. President, for accepting to grant this interview to I24 News. More so as your time now is consecrated to the European upcoming elections, which brings me to my first question. Should you, as a result of these elections, become president of the European Commission, indeed president of the government of the European Union, what would you introduce that has not been done as yet? How would you, for instance, handle the crisis in the Ukraine?
Ukraine shows very clearly what happens to states and nations without a framework. They have the opportunity to work beyond their own boundaries, not only physical boundaries, but also cultural, economic or linguistic ones. In the second part of the 20th century, we've created the European Union framework, where countries, bigger and smaller, powerful and less powerful, richer and poorer, work together on the same level. They respect each other and supervise each other in the framework we have created that is called the European Union. If that doesn't exist, you see how it ends, in a direct confrontation, because there is no way to reconcile the heterogeneous interests. So Ukraine is reflecting the values of our European Union. On the other hand, this European Union caught some kind of virus in the past few years. The renationalization, which weakens us, especially regarding our relations with Ukraine.
Following your last visit in Israel, you have become one of the best-known European personalities in this country. What have you discovered in this latest visit?
I will take the opportunity of having this interview with you to say that here, in the European Parliament, and in my country, in Germany, I belong to the most influential and hardline group of supporters of Israel. To me, as a post-war German, born in 1955, Israel was... The Germany-Israel relations have been an identity-building element for my whole generation. They have considerably influenced my life. So this phrase, I'm a friend of Israel, it's not just a phrase. For me, it's a key element of my whole political life. I believe Israel is in a quite tense internal situation. There is a big debate in this country regarding the future of the country itself, regarding the multiple internal conflicts and the ones that oppose this country, as such, with its neighbors. Uncertainty prevails permanently in the public and in the private discourse in this country. But I do understand a lot of Israelis' concerns. On the other hand, I rediscovered, from my own experience after my speech in the Knesset, that this country is an exception in the region. It's a vibrant, lively democracy, and sometimes it's a hard thing to deal with inside the country. Such are democracies.
In the speech you have delivered before the Israeli parliament, before the Knesset, you expressed your opposition to any boycott of this country. You also express a rather surprising position, which goes against the present European policy of singling out products of the settlements.
I think that those who listened to that speech and those who stood up and applauded at the end of it understood very well that a partisan of Israel had spoken. The issues I've raised and integrated in my speech are part of a debate taking place in Israel itself, and especially here in the European Parliament and everywhere else. A distinction must be made. What we call labeling, making the origin of a certain product visible to the consumer, is part of the binding legislation of the European Union. It has nothing to do with a boycott. That's one side of the coin. We are bound to make it visible to the consumer what region a product comes from. This was felt as some kind of boycott, and that shows the sensitivity. Let's stress the difference. On the other side of the debate, some companies, some enterprises, and some states say, because of Israel's policy, we must boycott its products. I don't share this opinion. I repeat, as a German, the word boycott in the context of Israeli products is hard to stomach.
Difficile à digérer. Je suis le représentant d'un pays où il y avait déjà des boycotts contre des produits juifs.
I represent a country where Jewish products used to be boycotted. It shocked me from the beginning. On the other hand, I invite our Israeli friends to think about a certain strategy, a certain policy within the country, a problem that hasn't been solved yet. The settlement problem arises such reactions from the outside.
Provoque à l'extérieur des réactions comme ça.
Mr. President, you keep talking about your identity as a German. Can a German criticize Israel nowadays? And another question that might have also to do with your German identity. Facing the upcoming European elections, public opinion polls indicate a tremendous rise of the extreme rightist parties, which are often tainted with racism and anti-Semitism. How should one struggle with those phenomena?
C'est une question extrêmement difficile. Et en principe, ils sont deux questions.
It's an extremely difficult question. Those are actually two questions. Can a German criticize Israel? That's one question. The increase in racism, xenophobia, and anti-Semitism in Europe, that's true, it does exist. These are 20th century demons which broke Europe apart, which destroyed the European democracies, and led the European culture to its lowest level. These demons are still alive. We're witnessing a case of economic crisis, where mainly the middle class in Europe feels under some threat. The best way to handle the crisis in Europe is for us, Europeans, to understand that we are one of the wealthiest continents on the planet. But the distribution of our wealth is not very fair. That's where we should fight. Economic balance and social stability are the best tools to contain this threat, but the threat exists. Whether Germans can criticize Israel, that's a very interesting question. I believe they can. Amongst friends, we can be frank and open. But never can a German question Germany's obligation and duty to stand by Israel's side in a fundamental manner. It means we can criticize each other. But these critics, I repeat, will never give a German the right to question Israel.
Mr. President, thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you very much.
That was it for the news today. Tonight, we will be back on Sunday with a new show, a new question, and new news. Don't go anywhere. Stay on I-24 News. Have a great weekend from the Jaffa Port. Have a great night.